Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Environment and Services Committee of Weymouth Town Council. Welcome to tonight's meeting. A few interesting bits of information on our agenda tonight, and I think one that we are all been anticipating is the seafront master plan. So I'm sure we'll have a good discussion on that. Before we move on to the agenda fully, just to remind everyone that this meeting is live streamed and goes out to Facebook. And that we have been informed also that some of this meeting will be filmed for DAPTC use. That's Dorset Parish and Town Councils Association, for those that don't speak in acronyms. Can I ask on item 2 on the agenda this evening for apologies for absence, please?
We've received no apologies, Chair.
Apologies? So there's no apologies, there'll be no substitutions. Can I just take it everyone's in agreement to that item then? If you to agree. Thank you. Moving on to item 3 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Have we been pre-notified any?
We have no pre-notified.
Thank you very much, Nikki. Should anyone feel a matter of interest does arise during the meeting, as always, please do make that known at the point in the agenda. Moving on to item 4, minutes of the last meeting. Are there any points on the accuracy of those minutes, or can we accept them as is? Do I have a proposer for that? Councillor Harris, seconder. Councillor Brooks, all those in favour? Those against? Or any abstentions? That is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to point 5, which is councillor questions and statements. Have we had any pre-notified questions or statements received?
We've had no pre-notified questions or statements.
Okay. We'll move on then to item 6 on the agenda this evening, which is public questions. And we have been notified of one question coming forward tonight by Mr. Theobald. So if you'd like to come forward and ask your question.
Yeah. Where do you want me to hear? Oh, yeah, just my question is, what action is Weymouth Council taking in regard to UN Agenda 2130 goals? That's what I would like to know.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Theobald. As your question was submitted in advance, we do have an answer which will be given to you this evening by the Assistant Town Clerk, Charmaine Denning.
And I understand I can speak for 3 minutes, is that correct?
Yes, you can. Would you like to hear the answer first, or?
I think afterwards. I think after the officer spoken.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Weymouth Town Council have appointed a Community Development Officer to work with local people and organisations to help facilitate improvements within the communities of Weymouth. This will help to provide a wide range of support and develop actions on the ground to enable communities to help themselves. The Council also support many community organisations annually through the Community Grant Scheme, which enables lots of worthwhile projects to happen supporting local people in the town. The Council are committed to work tackling climate change and protecting the environment for the work of its green spaces and resort departments, looking after the many open beach spaces that we have. Plus, we also have a Council working group for the Climate and Ecological Emergency, CEE, which the Council declared an emergency for in 2019. This work has generated policies which include biodiversity policy, tree planting policy, decarbonisation strategy and action plan, single-use plastic policy, a CE plan for Weymouth, so basically a single-use plastic policy, all of which are aimed at working and supporting the local environment and community. There are projects being developed through the wider CE plan for Weymouth that will address areas for energy production, transport, food and land use, community and business engagement and resilience work. This is being guided by a CE working group in the Environment and Services Committee, so the group that meet this evening. A key council project that is supporting some of the most vulnerable members of the Weymouth community is the Tumbledown project, where the council is turning an old farm asset into a community growing space that works with many groups and individuals from lots of backgrounds. Many of these people have additional needs, and we work together to grow fruits and vegetables and manage land sustainably, increasing biodiversity and widening knowledge and understanding. The council have written a community emergency plan that aims to help support and work with communities at times of crisis. This is a live plan that's being reviewed and added to annually to ensure it is fit for purpose. The purpose of the plan is to help increase local community resilience and support Tier 1 and Tier 2 responders where possible.
Thank you very much. Did you have any sort of further points off the back of that response?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. There are some positive things that the officer spoke about there. But we've got to come to this issue of carbon dioxide. We're told that there's a climate emergency. I'll read one or two things out. This is from Professor Chris Folland of the Hadley Centre, which is the Meteorological Office Climate Prediction and Research. And he said, the data doesn't matter. We're not basing our recommendations on the data. We're basing them on the climate models. And also, regarding carbon dioxide, we're about 0.4% of the atmosphere at the moment. If that was halved, if that level was halved, all green plants would die. Green plants need this. We learned this, the first lesson in our biology lessons at school. We all learned that, the carbon cycle. The carbon dioxide, a great deal of it is released from underwater volcanoes on the margins of the tectonic plates. They reckon maybe even in the region of 1 million of them. They're producing carbon dioxide that's vented into the ocean. So that's another thing. Regarding human carbon dioxide, they reckon that it might be in the region of about 1 molecule out of 85,000 molecules of carbon dioxide. 1 molecule produced by human activity. The other thing, we're meant to be transitioning to a low energy environment, but in actual fact, if you live in a developed country, an industrial country, and a highly populated country, you have to have energy. You cannot survive in such a country without plentiful and cheap energy. Now, the other thing to mention, CO2 is not pollution. It's conflated with pollution. It's a different thing. Pollution is such things as particulates. CO2 is not pollution. The plants need it, and without it, they would die, green plants, and that therefore there'd be no food for people. I don't know how far I've gone so far, but anyway, there's been 6 ice ages. There's 6 ice ages over prehistory. And all those ice ages occurred when there was more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere than there is now. So anyway, I'll just ask the council to consider those things. Essentially, we're actually at the bottom end of action by the United Nations. What they want to do, they want to approach local government at the lowest level, because they know there's not much participation by the public at the lowest level. Therefore, they think they can get their agendas in. It's essentially a power grab from United Nations, and UN is infiltrated with such people as Bill Gates. It's powerful people. It's not.
Okay, Mr. Field,
that's sufficient. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those additional points on the back of your question. Hopefully, you will receive a written copy of the response given by the officers also. And should you be sort of more interested in the council's commitment to the environment on what we're doing, I'm sure a member of our CEE working group would be more than happy to meet with you and discuss at any point. Okay, I'm not going to go into
No.
debate on this.
No. Could I just ask, Chair, that Charmaine's reply to that question, could it be emailed to all us councillors, please? Thank you.
Okay. Right, back on to item 5. I've got no other public questions noted by them, and nobody else has indicated to speak prior to commencing the meeting. So I'm going to move on to item 7 of our agenda this evening, which is the council's fees and charges. And this will be introduced by our assistant town clerk, Charmaine Denny.
Thank you, Chair. Prior to the meeting starting, I believe that our resort manager, Will Holmes, circulated updated beach charges and fees tables, so you had that one to do. Fees and charges presented are the default position based on existing policies where prices are increased by inflation each year, except where committee has agreed an alternative increase. As part of the budget process, it was noted that some charges may need to increase at a rate above inflation if members want the income to cover the increases in service provisions. For example, increased income may be needed to cover beach services such as the arm and line and beach cleansing where costs continue to rise. In addition, the resort team are reviewing the collection methods in respect of deck chair hire and deck chair deposits, and new charges may be proposed following this review. Therefore, it is expected that the fees and charges will be reviewed when services and service levels are reviewed in the new financial year. New charges may be applied following this process.
Okay, thank you very much. Is before we open this up to comment and debate, I just want to check that the Chair of Finance and Governance here. Was you here to talk on this item this evening, or?
I'll wait for the debate, only to say that the fees as proposed here are the ones baked into the budget. So if they change, I think it's a good, if you're reviewing service and you know, above inflation rises that are happening, then that's a good thing. If you were minded to cut any fees, then I'd need to go back and look at the budgets again, if it was material.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Gray. Can I open up then to discussion amongst members? Have got anyone wishing to speak on this item? Councillor Roost.
Can I propose it? I propose to support the recommendation,
So support,
the increase.
so you'd like to support the increase as per the paper with the
Yeah.
addition.
Yeah.
So that is seconded by Councillor Frost. But I've got two other people now wishing to speak, so Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just ask a quick question, through the chair? Can I just check with, oh gosh, councillor at the end of the table. When we did the allotment scrutiny, we were looking at whether it would be possible to, bring charges up so that it became cost neutral. And at the moment, we're just increasing it by, cost of the inflation. What did we agree with that scrutiny? Can you remember? I haven't got the papers to hand.
Councillor Taylor, I think the Assistant Town Clerk's got a response on this one. But then Councillor Brooks has got anything to add afterwards?
I'm struggling.
I'm aware the Open Spaces Manager has been looking at aligning us with our councils and seeing what the councils charge. But the charges applied in January this year were agreed in January 2023 budget process. So because our invoicing goes from January to December for the allotments. So where inflation's added as, so it's higher than it was now. So officers are looking at aligning price increases in future to the financial year rather than the calendar year. So going forward, we're looking at invoicing April to March rather than January to December.
Thank you.
Councillor Taylor, you're right, I do remember part of the recommendation was to look at the increase in charges. But of course, we can look at a particular line item at any point, so we may want to build into the recommendation that does come back to committee as a separate decision later on. Councillor Gray, did you want to come back in on allotments before I bring Councillor Ferdinand in?
Yes, just to say that we're cost neutral this year as an outturn. Shouldn't sway you one way or the other, given the increases in water rates that are piling through at the moment, so we're likely to dip back into red even with an inflation rise on a lot of them because water rates are going up far higher than inflation. So we're cost neutral at present.
Okay, thank you very much, councillor Gray, for that additional. Councillor Furman.
Thank you, Chair. Will, thanks very much for providing this. I'm just going to speak on this little additional part for the hire. I'd just like to make a slight amendment to it, if possible, Chair, and go from 50p on the deposits to £1. It's something I talked about a couple of years ago when I worked with Will on redeveloping our fee structure, and I think it's been 50p for like 20 years. I know we do get some income from it because people just don't claim their deposits, but 50p 20 years ago. So just a little proposal that we just put it up to £1.
Can I ask the resort manager, have you got any comments on that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, especially the 50p part. The team have been looking at trying to digitalise how we do our banking and how we do our cashing up for the beach service. It will mean that we take card and cash, but as the Assistant Town Clerk said, we may come back with some revised fees and charges for the deck chair hire, because we may take away the deposit scheme and add that deposit money into the price, which will make everything flow better with the new system.
That's covered. So that is going to be coming forward as a revised fee and charge during this year of the council. So you're happy just to sit on that one, Councillor Furman?
Is it definitely gonna, or are you still working on it, Will?
We've got 2 devices. We're doing one final demo with the finance team to give it a trial run, and then we're going to hit the ground running.
Is that without a deposit going on?
Yeah, that's our aim, because our hardest thing is trying to do a refund for a deposit through the
Yes.
card. So if we can increase the item price and include that deposit,
Sure.
even if everyone leaves everything out on the beach, we've got that extra amount of money to cover the extra staff costs.
Of course. Chair, is it okay? I'd still like it to go in because obviously it might not happen because we don't know how this new service will run out. So even if we defer to this deposit service, then I'd still like it to be a password.
So you're proposing that the deposit service on beach hire equipment is increased from 50p to £1. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Tewkesbury. Is there any comments just on that amendment? All those in favour, show of hands. Unanimous. Thank you very much. That now is the substantive which we will be taking forward. Is there any other comments really around any of the other fees and charges before we try and sum up with their proposal? Councillor Taylor.
Can I just ask that we add onto the cemeteries? We haven't got a cemetery fee for under 2-year-olds, and I know it's free, we don't charge for that, and I would never expect to charge for it. But just for completeness, it might be worth putting it into the paper as a not applicable charge.
I'm sure we can add that as a line into the table. That can just be noted, we don't need to formulate that as a recommendation. Anybody else? Okay, so now I'm looking for a proposal for the amended. Councillor Roos, seconded again by Councillor Frost. We'll go to the vote now. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Again, members, as we said in the debate, at any point, anyone can request that a line from the fee and charges is brought forward to committee for review. So we don't need to wait for the full 12 months. Okay, we're going to move on to item 8 this evening, which is the Seafront audio system. This is going to be presented tonight by our resort officers, Zach Williams. I'm sure many of you know. Zach, I think this is your first time presenting to a committee. It is. Right, so everyone be very, very nice to Zach. Don't scare him off. But Zach, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you, yes, we've got a, Thank you very much. Yes, this report's to recommend that we make some changes to the seafront PA system that we've got installed on the seafront. The current system was installed a number of years ago for the Olympic Games. It's kind of been adjusted over time as properties have changed and things have changed. So what I'm recommending is that we go with a system that will allow us to meet the needs of a council for our council run events and things, and kind of provide a bit of a balance with cost and benefit, really.
Thank you very much. Can I just ask you though, for the committee, your recommendation, just to clarify which option that is?
Yeah, so I'm recommending option 2, which is to install a kind of horn-based system from the Beach Control Office, which we estimate from kind of going out and getting some initial costings to be around £7,500.
Thank you very much. Before we go into discussion around the committee, I'm going to bring those, what do you call those seats, councillor Wakeling? No, don't worry about that. I'm going to bring non-committee members in for comment. Councillor Wakeling, you were indicating to speak.
Thank you. I'd just like to say, committee, I had a lengthy conversation with Zach about this, we went through all the options, and I completely agree with the recommendation. I think this is the right thing for us to do. So I'd ask you please to support Zach's option 2.
Thank you very much. Anyone else, non-committee members? Councillor Gray's waiting for a comment, but you can come on. I'm going to move into the committee discussion then. Councillor Harris.
I've only got a question. What's a horn system? It gives me an awful lot of imagination, but I'm not quite sure how that can do. Speak.
I'll be going out with a traffic cone to make every announcement. Yeah, it's a system that's used primarily for events and things. It kind of provides a large cone which allows the sound to kind of disperse over a longer distance. So that's why it's primarily for spoken use, because it can't reproduce kind of the frequency of music incredibly well, but for announcements it carries the sound very well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Toft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You haven't got it in place yet. How do you know it's going to reach where you want it to reach? Have you actually been somewhere and seen the system we're paying for actually working and stood at the furthest point and gone, yes, I can hear it? Because it would be a terrible shame if it's installed and then people are going, oh, what's happening? I can't hear. So I'm just asking that question. Thank you.
Yeah, so if you agree with the recommendation, what I propose to do is to engage with those suppliers again and get a demonstration of the system that we want to purchase. There are so many variables as well, so it could be, and that's kind of built into the specifications, it needs to be audible from a certain distance on a busy day, taking into account double-decker buses and, lots of children playing on the beach. But yeah, I would be testing that before we make a decision.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Zach, I've got a couple of questions. My first question is, so currently our PA system, as awful as it really is used to support a lot of council events. And that I know will build a lot into our event management plans around crowd control, safety announcements, and so on and so forth. As will it be into a lot of our charities and voluntary sectors and event organisers that also use that system to support their events. Probably at this point I will declare a non-pecuniary interest as a member of Wellington Port and Lions Club who hire the existing PA system. That is non-pecuniary. Councillor Brooks, are you also going to come in on that?
Do I need to?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's myself and Councillor Brooks there. But how is that now going to are we going to be able to manage the same level of announcements for that requirement in our event management plans for firework nights, armed forces celebrations, with the one horn specification which you're proposing to go forward on? Or will that now increase spend on those events, bringing in external provision?
So we primarily, speaking from a kind of council point of view, we use the system primarily for fireworks nights and things like that. But likewise, yes, with the armed forces and it's used for motocross and things like that as well. It would meet our needs, and I would anticipate that we would use the system more because of that, for more safety things, for kind of beach safety, sun safety, promoting things like that. I suppose I would say for anybody organising an event, it may be that yes, we can offer it out and it may be suitable for events that operators may wish to use. Ultimately, I would say their event management plan would dictate what the specification of the system is that will be required for that. But we do hire
But
it.
that would also be that for our events for self-safety controls.
Yeah.
So you're saying that this one horn option may result in additional costs for events, including Weymouth Town Council fireworks.
No, because we already hire in additional things for things like armed forces and that, and I think for the commentary side of it, which is what it's used for with fireworks, it will be an adequate system for that.
But that's just a small proportion of the estimate we're currently hiring in for, which is really from beach control office up to the pier bandstand. So I think when we have the military vehicles and fireworks, we don't have any external provision for fireworks, but we do for armed forces. But we also get that coverage all the way along the esplanade. So if the horn system we put in won't cover announcements, which it probably won't because it's facing outwards and most of these events, the crowds at this side, we are going to have additional costs on council run events to meet that announcement requirements. That's one point in question I've got. Second point is, I know Councillor Wakeling, Watley would shoot me if I didn't say this evening. He's long campaigned for further extension of RPA systems so that announcements could be made the whole length of the esplanade. And this option would drastically reduce the coverage we would receive. So effectively only making announcements to the beach rather than the esplanade. Saying that, I have seen these horn systems when I've gone away on holiday to Cornwall and Devon on beaches there. The RNO use them, their beach management systems use them, they are quite loud and vocal. And it would give us more control to use it on a daily operational basis for safety announcements, which again has been an aspiration of some members of this council for a long period of time. So I support the requirement for upgrading our system. But at the moment, without any demonstrations or evidence that it would actually meet our requirements, I don't think I could go forward with any of these options. Because I personally think, I know it's a higher cost, but for the investment in the long run, I think we should be looking at replacing the whole system, the whole length of the estimate. I'm going to spark some comments and debate there. Councillor Gray wants to come in, then Councillor Roos.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I don't think we're spending enough money. And the reason I don't think we're spending enough money is if this was put in 2012, it's lasted nearly 14 years at £750 a year, and it's worth nothing now. My view is the one horn system probably isn't adequate enough to invest for the next 10 years, which is really what you should be looking at in terms of a capital spend. So I don't know whether there's room to add more horns. So one going one way, one going the other, then one down the other end, I don't know technically. But this cost could be met from projects, got money in the project budget to meet an increased cost. And I think my view is the same as yours, which is we need to invest in the next 10 years events. And therefore we should go for perhaps spending a bit more money and cutting out the cost of hiring the additional, not very good portable systems that we previously hired.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gray. Councillor Roos.
I'm coming at it at a bit of a different angle, but I agree with Councillor Hope and Councillor Gray. I did a degree in music design and performance, and a part of that degree is music technology. So part of me wonders, when I'm looking at this, I want to know what wattage we're using, what's the output, how far will that reach? And I think I looked at it and I thought 7,500, if you're covering quite a space anyway, is really quite a bargain. That's the first thought I had, because for example, I own a PA system that's used for large venues and that cost us over £5,000. But I know that the price of those things goes up quite regularly. And then I was thinking, well, actually, if you're wanting to cover a whole beach, you're wanting everybody to hear it and to maybe even have its use beyond, or to have things that can be used beyond just speaking, you're looking at spending quite a lot more. But it's well worth it in the end, especially if you have things that can be transferable. So, you know, I know you guys like to wheel out sometimes like the, you know, the amps that people use just to speak through a microphone on the promenade. But if you get something really advanced, you can also be using it for when you put staged events on the seafront and on the beach. So I think, and you know, there's makes of speakers, etc., like Bose, that are made specifically for traveling through air and through sound. So they are advanced systems made for outdoors so that they travel. It's just looking into what's affordable, but at the same time, I think it's worth investing well, it's going to be a lot more money over time, but to have something that is transferable and a bit more, I don't know, like a bit more spicy on the beach.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harris?
Thank you, yes, following more or less on from what Dia said, I think that we've got another debate coming later on tonight about the seafront strategy. The seafront strategy is encouraging things to happen around the clock, it's encouraging things to happen up by Greenhill. How are we going to communicate to those? If there's a crisis at one end of the beach, we need to be able to tell people at the other end of the beach that something is happening. And then they need to, you know, there's a shark coming down the bay or whatever it might be. You know, we've got to look at what we're trying to do anyway and ensure that this fits into that. And we've got a massive, great scheme. Okay, it's over a 10-year period, but coming before us in a minute. So let's make sure that our sound systems are built for that as much as for the present.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wakeling, you were jumping up and down at the back there again.
No, I just wanted to sort of add some context to this. This is not going to be like the best system in the world, clearly. And Zach and I did look through options. We looked at what they use on cruise ships. If we had £1 million to spend, we could have an awesome sound system, believe me, but we don't have £1 million to spend on a sound system. This is going to provide better coverage in about 100 metres inside of the beach office than we currently have. Now, it's not going to cover the whole beach. It's not going to reach the pavilion or past Green Hill, because that's not. The cost would be cabling down the prom. That will cost more than the speakers themselves almost, because you've got to have the ground dug up and stuff. So if members want to go that way, bear in mind, we're going to have groundworks done. We're going to have the ducting put in. The costs are going to go up exponentially. This is a solution that will give us better coverage over a small area. That means that we can make safety announcements for the peak part of the beach. And they will be both voice only, because it's a horn-based system. It's not a full range PA system. I looked at what cruise ships use. They have marine intensified line arrays. They're beautiful sound systems, but they're out of our league, I think. So we have to look at what we can have within our means that will, it won't be brilliant, but it will be better than what we've got now.
Thank you very much. Councillor Roos?
See, I don't want to burst your bubble, but I just want to make sure that we give you, like, we invest enough, we put enough into this to make it something that's at least usable for long-term use, I think. We'll throw money at you, if we could.
Councillor Tewkesbury?
Thank you, Chair. Can I make a proposal that the Tannoy system is included into the seafront strategy, because it's all part of the same thing? So what we're talking about the horn system, we're going to be talking about the strategy, the seafront, this all should be included in the whole thing at that same time. And also we need to go somewhere, I think, in between the 7,500 figure, obviously not the 100,000 figure, but we need to go somewhere in between that. So if we include it into the strategy, it's all built in one.
Councillor Tewkesbury, just point out on the first item, the Assistant Town Clerk is informing me we have to make a decision on this paper because it's on the agenda. So we can defer it and push it into the next agenda. We need to actually consider, we've read the papers already for the seafront master plan, so we need to consider the direction we think we're going to go in now when we're debating this. I think as part of the recommendation though, the 100, option 4, which is the feeling I get realistically from discussion here, sorry, option 3, which is, really from the feeling of the discussion here is where we all really want to go. And realistically, the Chair of Finance and Governance back there has said, if there's budget available to go down that route, and of course, we will submit this request forward to Finance and Governance to support, isn't going to happen for this summer. So there's an immediate requirement to have something in place for the summer to meet the council's risk assessments, then we could support option 2. Because it's not a big investment and it still wouldn't be redundant even if we were to do the full lot next winter, spring. Because realistically, the work that's required, as Councillor Wakeling said, to install the system is that's in option 3. We wouldn't want being done in peak. We could support option 2 for now, but say, let's bring option 3 back as a fully costed plan to a further committee meeting. That would give our officers the tools they need to safely manage the beach. Gives them control, which is at the moment, they've got absolutely no control over the PA system. I think whenever you want to use it, you have to ring up the guy that's got the maintenance contract that goes on and individually switches the poles on. And then you can make an announcement, which isn't responsive enough for what we need as a busy resort. So I'm quite happy at the moment to propose that we move forward with option 2 as an intermediate method, but request option 3 comes back fully costed to a further committee. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Roos. Does anyone like to make any comments on that proposal? Councillor Brooks?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think if we're looking at making announcements safely or otherwise across the Esplanade, we need to be looking at the pavilion to the beer bandstand. And I would have thought that's the minimum coverage. And if we purchase this horn system, but then at a later date go for the better system, would we be able to use that horn system somewhere else, perhaps on the harbour, or would that be static and in place? And could it become a mobile that we could perhaps hire out to people?
So that can be like sheds and stuff.
Yeah. Zach, you happy to come on to that?
Yeah, possibly. It would. Yeah, it would be a system that we could use for some events, provided we had power and things at those events, the motor use battery powered things. But may I just go on with it about what you were saying about again an interim option? Is that okay? Yeah, sorry, Councillor Brooks, is that answer?
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah, we may be able to repurpose it, but I can't off the top of my head say what.
What are the concern of it? If we, as you've said, we need something in place that's better than what we've got for this summer. Well, okay, let's go for the 750 one. But if we then, at a later stage, later date, say, but let's have the bigger one, pier bandstand to the pavilion, what then happens to the horn system? Could that be a backup?
Well, I think we're jumping the gun here slightly with that question, Councillor Brooks, if I can sort of just say that we're going to ask, but we're not saying we're going ahead with option 3, which is the full system along the whole of the Esplanade. We're saying we support option 2 for an intermediate, but option 3 to come back as a fully costed option. With that paper that comes back in the future, we can have some information around what could be done with the horn system that's put in place. But knowing the horn systems, our old horn system, which was taken down prior to the Olympics, those horns are still in use as a mobile system So I would say the answer is yes, they could be repurposed.
okay.
Councillor Harris, you want to come in on the proposal?
Thank you, yes, because I think it's important that it is mobile, because if you think about another part of our policy, that is that we're trying to get community events all around the town, then a mobile system is definitely needed for those community events. So I think that if the whole system is not mobile, we shouldn't be buying it anyway, because we need a mobile system for a lot more than just on the beach.
Okay, Zach, you wanted to come in on that?
Yes, so for events, we do currently have some portable systems, and those are more suitable for those events because they're self-battery powered, they've got their built-in microphones that work with their systems. I appreciate the desire, and I would very much like to think about the bigger picture and the seafront strategy and how, you know, it incorporates with replacement street furniture, street lighting, things like that, but I appreciate that they are longer term projects. Music reproduction across such a large open space, you've got to consider things like latency and how quickly sound bounces off the building. So there's lots of considerations that need to be taken place for a large kind of expensive system. And we are very exposed to sea salt, winds, weather, and the more things you put outside, they will weather, as expensive and shiny as they might be. So I think, yeah, the option 2, from my point of view, would meet our kind of immediate needs, be better than what we've got. But yes, absolutely, I think as part of the larger strategy, it would be really good to consider future options.
Thank you very much, Zach. Councillor Furman?
Yeah, could we just, Chair, if it's okay, could we just bring the discussion back to the agenda points? I think we're going off on these community kind of things. What would be required of the beach? I know enough about PA that what's required for the beach would not be required for our community. They're two separate uses, and we need something permanent on the beach. That's what we need. We need something mobile for communities. They're two separate things. Also, there's the hoteliers we've got to consider in terms of the noise impact for them. I'm sure they might have some input into this. I'm not seeing from the discussion in the room that we're really ready to make a decision on it. I'll defer to you, Chair, in terms of how we might bring this forward in terms of, do we not accept a recommendation? And I don't know.
Currently a proposal on the table, which is to support option 2.
Yes.
And then I request the full paper to come back later on with option 3 to be implemented. Option 2 would give us coverage for the immediate. And option 2 can then come back as a fully costed plan with how and when, should this committee wish to support that, go forward to finance and governance. I would say by the time that paper comes forward, it will be the new council's decision. Okay. Councillor Roos.
I was just saying, I think it just makes sense to just do what you're suggesting, because we are literally going to debate something that the next council could sit there and go, no, we ain't bothered with option 3, or they might get to hear the new option 2 and go, that's good enough. We don't know until we put something in place.
Okay, so on your request, Councillor Furman, I'm going to move forward with the votes. So just to be clear, it's option 2 to go forward with request to finance and governance, with option 3 to come back as a costed plan, future committee. That's been proposed by myself, seconded by Councillor Roos. All those in favour? Good, yes, thank you very much. Well done, Zach. Okay. Moving forward, we have item 9 on our agenda this evening, which is the review of toilet opening time. We'll remind the committee that we're not here to talk about paint, tiles or furnishing in toilets. It is just the opening times. So we are going to move. Will, you're going to introduce this evening, aren't you? So over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides members with an update on how the revised toilet opening and closing times work throughout 2023. Officers are recommending that the committee agree to continue these opening and close times moving forward.
Thank you very much, Will. I'm hoping, I did request at the chairman's meeting, that the toilet working group have been consulted with this paper coming forward today. And I'm guessing that's what councillor Wakeling's waving from the back to speak on.
But it was circulated to the toilet working group, this paper. There's 3 points I'd quickly like to make. The first is when this originally came up, the wording was quite careful that the toilets would be opened by a certain hour and closed after a certain hour. Which we were quite careful to make sure, because then the residents would have some certainty that they would be open. And which I just would like to note that wording has vanished from this. But maybe 2 of the members of the working group that are on in the room will amend that. The 2 points I'd like to make are, we've tried this for 1 season, but it was not a typical season. You may remember it was quite damp throughout July and August this year. And in my opinion, that means these times weren't fully tested. They were only tested in what was an off year. I can give 2 examples of situations around that. Firstly, I was contacted by an older gentleman who described themselves as having a weak bladder. And to avoid embarrassment, this gentleman will only go out at the hours the toilets are available. And he's not the only person in the situation. If we are only opening certain ones from 10 till 5 in the winter, that means the hours he feels confident to go for a walk around town are limited to 10 till 5 every day. So I'd ask the committee, please, just to be mindful that when we have shortened like this, it has a restrictive effect on certain residents, those of a certain age, some disabilities, and vulnerable members of society may feel less able to go out and enjoy our town. My second point, again, reflecting on the weather last season, we had a very hot May and June, if you remember, and then it just wouldn't stay warm or sunny at all for the next 8 weeks. And we know this as a business because the deck chair revenue was down and the cafe revenue was down. I will point out that in the summer, the sun sets after 9 PM and it isn't even dark till 10 PM at that time of year. And I know the Nose Gardens very well because I walk my dog there. Last summer, there were not many people out in the evenings because it was so unseasonal, so there wasn't really a demand at that time of life. If you'd gone back 12 months previous to 2022, we had a heat wave that lasted 3 months. It barely rained for 3 months straight. It was warm and dry. Every single evening, we had people all over the gardens. They had barbecues, they had picnics. They were playing frisbee, setting a tightrope through the trees, drinking a few ciders, long past sunset. And that's what happens when you've got a hot, sunny year. And my worry is if we lock the toilets at 8 PM and you've still got people enjoying the gardens 2 hours later and they've drunk a crate of cider, you know what's going to happen. So my request to you members and to the officers is to keep the opening hours under review and consider how flexible we can be. I cannot predict what the weather will be like in July and August this year, but if we get a year like 2022, I don't think these times will be adequate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What have we got any comments or on the back of that?
No, the only one is that I noted that the from and that opened from 8 from the opening time and the closing time of bombs are not in there, which they do need to be added in. That's what I suggested.
Okay, we can consider that when moving forward the recommendation. So they should say open from and closed by or after.
Close and from.
Open from.
By, open by,
Yeah.
closed after.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. We can look at that in the recommendation. Can I open it up to the table, councillor Roos?
I agree in that the opening, especially in the summer, it needs to be open earlier, closed later. From a business perspective, especially when people need the toilet, after the toilets are closed, they will use businesses as in doorways, wherever they can find. With my partner who has a business in a different seaside town, he has one of his businesses right next to public toilets, and when they're closed, the things that happen around those public toilets in the summer are quite shocking. And so it's kind of like the lessons I've seen are that it really needs to be after after 10 o'clock in the summer, that the toilets are closed if possible. I'm also mindful of the fact that there are a lot of families around, a lot of people who are elderly, a lot of people with incontinence issues who do need to have toilets accessible beyond the shop closing times when some shops might be offering, like Marks and Spencers. And obviously the places like the Pavilion don't want to be providing the public with toilets. It's for the people who are their customers. So I kind of feel like we need to be really mindful of how the times that we close the toilets are really going to impact business. As a ward councillor in that ward, I get contacted quite regularly about businesses who have to deal with human bodily fluids and doorways and stuff. And, you know, especially in summer. And I think we need to be mindful of that when it comes to, I think we should go with something that's a bit more expansive if possible. I know it's down to how long we can get people contracted to work and working hours, but yeah, that would be ideal.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Roos. Councillor Furman, was you?
Oh, wait.
Okay. Councillor Gray.
Yeah, just a bit of context for you. So we spend 10% of our precept. So over £300,000 a year on the 10 sites. So the budget for next year is based on the existing times. So if you decide to extend those times, and by the way, of the 300,000, over half of that is salary for the cleaners. So the majority of the budget is spent on cleaning them, 10 sites. If you decide to, I think I'm right in saying they lock up, do they? So we would be into extra salary costs, which are not budgeted for. So if you mind to make a decision to extend those hours, we're going to have to find some extra budget from someone.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gray. I think you make a really valid point that I think we need to make sure that this is on the forward plan in December next year, or even this year. So this discussion could be had prior to budget setting, because it has a big impact on the budget, as Councillor Gray said. And I know one reason the sort of working group was formed was to look about how to reduce the budget spend on public conveniences without closing the doors. And this was a recommendation that came from that working group. We don't have sufficient data or evidence around us to say that these times don't work for our public. So I think, I'm minded personally to support the officer's recommendation, with the only comment to make that in group 2, I believe that the marsh should also be included in that, public conveniences on the marsh. Will you just confirm that?
Yeah, so the marsh is separate to that. It's down below the bullet points, those times are 10 AM until dusk. We have had a lot of vandalism at the marsh. A period over the Christmas and New Year period, they were shut completely because they'd just been trashed in the daytime. So we do find that we want to shut them when it is dark, because that is when we see quite a lot of vandalism. So yeah, the marsh is in there, it's just in a separate part.
That's why I actually support that being separate, so that was fine. But no, I am minded to support the recommendation as per the paper with that slight amendment that says open by, closed from. Okay, Councillor Harris.
Thank you, yes. I'm a little bit concerned about that last statement, because up there, if it's the marshes to dusk, it's later than any of the others in the summer. So I think we've got to think about that one, because I don't think that's valid.
So maybe to include no later than.
Could be. But equally, I think we've got to have some idea of the toilets in section 2. Need to have some idea as to which ones are more likely to be needed in the summer. As Councillor Bruce said, there's a lot of activity goes on the nose on a nice warm summer's evening. So the form gives us flexibility, but I'd like to ensure that that flexibility is actually used at the occasions that it's needed. it won't be needed for all of those toilets in section two, but it may be needed for one or two of them. And that will come from experience, but I think we've got to use the word from to actually be valid and not just a pretense that we might go on later, but we've really got to go on later as and when it's needed.
Thank you very much. Will, did you want to come back on that?
Yeah, just point regarding the no's, I do know that all of our staff, when they close the group two toilets, they usually start at Overcombe because it is one of our quieter ones and then work through the town. And the node is normally the last toilet to be closed in group two.
Thank you very much. Based on the other point that councillor Harris made around the marsh being closed at dusk, if we were then to change that to meet that requirement, that no later than, what sort of time would you indicate that they would normally be shut?
In the summer period, I would say that they normally shut around 7 PM. So they usually start at the marsh is the first place they'll start to close down. And then in the winter time, I would suggest sort of 4:30, 5 o'clock, because by that point it is very dark.
Yeah, we can build those times, I think, is the recommendations. Councillor Toft.
Could I just ask, I know you say you have QR codes installed at several premises now so that members of the public can report things. Are these inside the premises or on the outside? So if, for example, we go with these times for closing, and the QR code is on the outside and somebody goes to use it and they can't, if we get enough feedback, we can then review and say, actually, people are using the QR code saying, why is this shut? It's a lovely evening, I'm out for another 2 hours. Then, you know, but only if the QR code is outside. Is it inside? That's a really good question, because it would be a useful tool to get feedback to the group.
Yeah, it's a great point, and it's something we can certainly look at is with the opening and closing times on the outside, we can include a QR code that maybe says, not happy that the toilets are shut, please give us your feedback, and then they could do that. The QR code in the toilet is to report any damage that comes directly to our office. So, yeah, definitely something we would look at, because from the resident survey, there wasn't very many responses regarding toilet opening times. So more feedback we can get, the better.
I think it would be useful on that QR code if you were to implement something like that, says where the nearest or open one is.
Yeah.
Whether that be a business that's signed up to the community toilet scheme or our nearest one. So yeah, that's very good idea.
Really good.
Very good idea. Anybody else? Councillor Berman.
Thank you, Chair. So can I just check that the amendment is in for open from closed after? Can I just confirm that?
On a technicality at the moment, no, because no proposal's been made.
Okay, I would, would you like to propose it, Helen?
I'll propose it, you can second it, or,
Whichever.
yeah.
Or if you're happy, if you want to speak, and then we're trying to come up with one motion together at the end
Yes.
that covers all things.
Yeah.
I think I prefer that than several amendments.
Okay, so, yeah, thank you, members. So I was part of the toilet working group that developed this. I think what's really important to note are a couple of things, is that we've probably talked more in the last 20 minutes about this than all of our residents combined in terms of our feedback of what we've got on the opening time. So we should be looking to make a knee-jerk reaction on this. We haven't had an overwhelming response on these times, so we shouldn't be looking to increase budgets or spend on something that was designed to reduce spend and budget, and that's what we did with this. I take the point of Councillor Wakeling about, yes, last summer was a slightly different one. I'm fine with it being on review every year. You know, it's you know, we want to get it right. We don't need to lock ourselves into anything. So, Chair, again, I'll defer to you whether we can just have this as a review. You know, how can we recommend this as to stay in review for December or November? Because I noticed the winter dates there start from October, so we kind of know what we've got from the season in October, so we can nail it down in November perhaps and get it right for next year.
I would say December would give us enough time before the budget. Any member can request an item come forward to the committee at any point.
Yeah,
But if you want to ensure that it comes back to that meeting, we can build that into the recommendation that will state the committee would like to review this in December's meeting.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, is it all right if I carry on, Chair, just? Yeah, so I would propose then that we accept the report with the open by closed after, and that we accept these times and that we keep them in review for either a November, December meeting.
With the addition to the defined, times on the marsh, and to include the QR codes about nearest toilet.
Yeah.
I was just about to say.
Yeah.
For consultation.
Teamwork, councillor.
That's it.
Works very well in West.
It does, the mighty West.
Okay, is that a proposal?
Yeah, it is.
Is everyone clear on that proposal?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I have a seconder then? Councillor Toft?
Just to agree with one of this.
There you go, nice to keep it in the toilet working group over there. Okay, so everyone's clear, we are moving forward with that recommendation. All those in favour, show of hands. Any against? Or that's one against, or any abstentions? No. That is carried. And since it's not an amendment, councillor Flynn, we don't have to take the vote again, because it was a recommendation.
Lovely.
So thank you very much, Will. And
Cheers, Will.
I'm not going to sing for any toilet groups, toilet jokes. That's what you get at finance and governance for their chat. Right. The big one on the agenda this evening, members, and I know the assistant town clerk has worked very, very hard on this report and is quite excited to actually bring it forward to us. So I'm going to hand over to Charmaine to introduce, please.
I'm not sure I'd use the word excited, but anyway, over the last 18 months, as a town council, we've consulted with over 3,000 residents, visitors and businesses around future management and development of Weymouth Seafront. Based on the consultation and engagement exercises, the draft Seafront strategy has been produced and it's presented to you this evening in Appendix B, I think it is. The strategy provides a vision for the next 10 years, and key areas that the strategy focuses on includes consolidating beach attractions, enhancing the promenade, catering facilities along the promenade, enhancing Green Hill and Preston area beach, facilities and activities for young people, and there's also some generic action points in there as well. Actions within the strategy have been given implementation timescales, and these are near term, so things that are likely could happen within the coming months, and certainly this summer or next summer. Mid-term and also longer term. You may recall a couple of months back, 100K's worth of SIL funding has already been allocated to implement some of this strategy, and the council would also seek to find alternative internal and external funding for some of the projects through working with key stakeholders.
Thank you very much. Right, before we open this up to discussion, is there any comments from non-committee members? Councillor Gray.
Only chair that I fully support this document. I've seen it several times through its iteration. It's well written. It gives a sense of direction for the next 10 years of what the officers need for the offer that we have as a town council. So I would fully support this. It's well written.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wakeling.
I'm not quite as impressed as my colleague. I think it's a very good starting point. There's some things in it I feel, for example, there's no mention here about any flood defence works, which we know are going to be a huge part of the seafront over the next 20 years. And in fact, anything we want to do needs to tie into that, or it could potentially be wasted. And also there may be cost savings available if we can synergise with those works. So that's a massive thing that I think isn't in here. I note of our residents' survey, the 5th most popular thing was better cycle routes, and I don't see any implementation of those in it either. So, that's a starting point, however, I personally think it could do with a bit more, maybe some more input from members. I wasn't aware there was a working group for this, maybe I missed out on that one. But I just think there's a few missed opportunities, and I would not be happy to, I personally wouldn't recommend a strategy for the next 15 years if we've missed a few things like that. I mean, the flood defence works for the promenade is huge, so that's, I would sort of maybe ask members to think about whether we can go around again with it.
Councillor Wakeland, I was just going to ask the Assistant Town Clerk to come back on a couple of those points, just really for a sense of clarity before we go into the formal debate.
Thanks, Chair. So with regards to flood defences, you may recall, I think this came before committee or draft action plan did, probably, was it spring 2020? Was it spring last year? Or anyways, earlier last year. And it was quite a heated topic because what was presented to you wasn't actions that Weymouth Town Council could deliver. So we went away and this is what Weymouth Town Council can deliver. I take on point your thing around flood defences and so forth, and we would continue to work with our partners and that would fit in with beach management plans and so forth. The strategy is what Weymouth Town Council can deliver and achieve in the 10 years, not 15. You mentioned better cycle routes being the 5th most popular thing. Not sure where that's come from, where statistic lies, because it's not the detail that regarding cycle routes. There was some comments regarding mixed use on the promenade, but within there's also additional provision for additional cycle racks and so forth. Also, there has been a working group. I have worked closely with both the Finance and Governance Chair and the Chair of Services, Environment Services, just to get their input before coming into committee this evening, and all members have had an input throughout the consultation.
Thank you very much. So members, we're going to open this up to debate. A couple of key points just to reiterate there is last year we were presented a plan that was produced by an external provider that I think really Weymouth wasn't happy with and we wasn't happy with. So our instruction was to officers to come back with a plan that we as a town council could deliver in line with a bigger picture being worked on by other agencies such as Dorset Council Environmental Agency. So we are here really to look around what we can deliver for our residents within our remit. So with that in mind, I'm going to open up now to debate. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I think that the point that Councillor Wakeling made has to be noted. I totally agree that it's our plan and it's what we want to do, but we should be doing it in consultation with and so there should be a mention of the fact that we have to work with these other agencies to ensure that we're not wasting our money doing something that they're going to dig up 2 years later. I've got a question first before I say one or two things. The grass in front of Bowley's Cove, is that part of Weymouth Town Council's property or not?
Yep, so the from the grass area is, but that isn't included within this plan. The scope of this was from the Oasis Cafe to the Pavilion.
Okay, thank you. The reason I asked that question is I'm a bit concerned that the total amount that we're trying to achieve will overwhelm what it is we wanting to produce. If you take notice of some of the questions, some of the responses, especially in that box of quotes at the beginning, there's quite a lot that said, we enjoy the peace and quiet of. We like to get to Green Hill because it is quiet. We want that quietness for some aspects of this beach seafront strategy. If we put all the things in it that we would like to have, I'd be a little bit concerned that it would actually be overwhelming in taking away the quiet, taking away some of those peaceful areas that people want, unless we utilise aspects like Bowleys, because that's a bit of space that is there, or encourage people to go there because that's where the peace and quiet is. But we've got to recognise that. There was no mention of in Green Hill, putting, bowling and tennis. Now, I'm not quite sure what we're able to do with the tenants that have got that bit of the land around Green Hill, the trust that is looking after that site. It belongs to Weymouth Town Council, but it's got an awful lot of space on it that we would want to put some of these things that we've got in our strategy. So it's vital that we do make contact with and encourage them to participate in some of this activity. And finally, there's one or two things where there's land that we do own and have control over, Lodmore Country Park. I think we've got to point, sometimes we've got to have some of those things in somewhere that is very close to the seafront, but we point people to them. Because as I say, I'm a little bit concerned that we might overwhelm people with something everywhere and nowhere to sit and just enjoy.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Harris. Was there any points there that you need to respond to?
I'm happy to respond to the element around the Green Hill CIC, the bowling area and so forth. Point 4, action point 4B does cover that. It says to work in partnership with the Friends Group, Green Hill CIC and other stakeholders to provide additional facilities and make improvements in this area. So I feel that covers that.
Do we know if they're willing to?
We have had discussions and there's already some ideas on the table on what they could do with tennis courts.
Good.
Thank you very much. Who's next to speak? Councillor Bell.
I just wanted to pick up what Councillor Wakeland was talking about with the cycling. I can see where his comment came about fifth. We can see the percentages of responses there. I can see the Deputy Town Clerk nodding at me. I've noted that further down there is a section that talks about, just lost it now, more cycle racks as a near-term target and obviously involving capital costs. I'm inclined to agree with Councillor Wakeling that cycling infrastructure should be clearer within this. You know, travelling to beaches all over the country and also abroad, having these cycle paths along the front caters for family groups in a safer way. I can see Councillor Gray has a response on this.
Councillor Gray.
Well, I was going to respond, sorry for my body language, that this document is about what we control. We do not control the cycleways on the promenade. That is a DC responsibility. I've been trying for 9 months, to get a TRO on the promenade, and Dorset Council have thwarted me at every step. So getting the cycleway changed, if you get it done in the next iteration of the council, I'll be astounded. But be clear, this document is about what we can do. We can't change the cycleway on the promenade because it's not our responsibility. It has to be the local authority that does that. So that's why it was left out of the strategy, quite deliberately. It's a good thing to do. Quite how you get Dorset Council to partner us is a mystery to me.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gray. Comments on our colleagues at Dorset Council that we should keep them out of this meeting this evening.
I'm on camera, so who cares?
Right, who's next to speak? Very quiet this evening. Very comprehensive document, I'm sure, that you've all read and fully understand, that's why. So I think the key is, before we move to a recommendation, that we've got to remember that this is the overarching document, this is the strategy, this is the direction. The actions can follow at any point. And there'll be no stopping people from writing PIDs into committee that says, I want to do this on the Esplanade, it's aligned with the Seafront Master General Plan. Can I have some seal money or can I have some money from a budget? And that will be the process that follows. This will be a strategy document to take us forward on developing ideas over the next 10 years. And like any document and strategy, it can be brought back to committee for review at any point. So, because things change and 10 years is quite long. But the key thing is that we as a council, and our message to full council should be for adoption of this, is that we support this at this time and it will help us move forward, but it has to be a working document. This council has a good track record of producing strategies that we actually work to. They don't sit on a shelf, they don't get dust on them. We live, we breathe them, and we push ideas forward through these strategy documents. So I would personally like to thank the Assistant Town Clerk and all the officers that have been involved in this document. And I would be happy to propose that we adopt as is. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Frost. Now we've got the formal proposal. Was there any comments on that proposal? Councillor Taylor?
Can I just ask, in view of what you've just said, if we have an annual review on this document, just to keep it up to date and keep it live and keep it in before the councils?
We've suggested we have suggested in the document biannually, and it's the same as what we do for our parks and open spaces strategy.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
I think Councillor Taylor as well, I'm sure it will become an standing information item of what projects are being delivered under the strategy as well, so we will keep informed. Any other comments? Going to take that forward then, so it's proposed by myself, seconded by Councillor Frost. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on, item 11 on the agenda this evening is information items. As always, they are here for information. Councillor Rose, is it an easy one? Because I'd like to give the officers
It really is an
yeah.
easy one. I just really wanted to quickly note, I'd like to ask that the next Environment and Services Committee, we have a report from about the Arts and Heritage Policy. I put in a PID nearly 2 years ago to have a silhouette put on the harbour to commemorate World War II soldiers. And nothing has happened. I've had no feedback, nothing's happened since. And I have been regularly contacting council to ask what's been going on. So it'd be great if, because I've got one more meeting before we go into a new council, I would really appreciate having some feedback on what's happening with that. Thank you.
I can assure you, Councillor Roos, that the policy the strategy document took a bit of a back step during the council's reorganisation.
Yeah.
But that piece of work has been picked up by Tina, one of our project officers. I was working with her on it before Christmas, and I know that she's emailed me recently just to get some more information. So that will be going back to the working group and then come back to committee for adoption in the very near future. But I can't guarantee it will be in this reiteration of the council. Assistant Town Clerk, anything to add?
There is on the door plan on the 6th of March, it is the cultural strategy is there. Yeah.
I did get that one in and I did push for it before we finished. Councillor Howard?
Just follow up question on that one. Have we got any of those silhouettes of soldiers left in our stores or anywhere? Because obviously with D-Day 80 coming up, to have a little bit more information out and about like that would be extremely valuable.
As far as I'm aware, I'm looking at our resort manager. I don't think we've ever had any, and I don't recall seeing any of our stores.
Dickinson.
Thank you very much, Chair. In the information item on the tumble down, it says that officers are applying to the Community Connection Fund to welcome residents from the Bibby Stockholm to Tumbledown. Should anything happen to our vulnerable people that use that as a result of one of these residents of the Bibby Stockholm, would this council be liable to be sued?
Before any activities took place, it doesn't matter if the volunteers are from the Bibby Stockholm or anyone in the local community, we've got necessary risk assessments, procedures and policies in place to protect the council.
100%. So they do DBA checks?
We can talk about that outside the meeting, but DBS is dependent on safeguarding issues and so forth, and if they're having regular contact with the same people, it may not be the regular contact with the same people, but we do carry out the necessary checks we need to do, depending on our policies and procedures.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just going to remind members that normally we do request questions or information items to submit in fast, so that the members have the full information to be able to present to councillors at the meeting. So there's a couple of questions there that if we had that information, those questions in advance as requested, the officers could have come to the meeting with answers. So just a little reminder there, but I'm sure all officers involved will come back to the councillors that raise those questions and provide a response. If there's no other points on information items or actions from the previous meetings, forward plan. I'm seeing no requests to speak. I think it's just worth noting that the next Environment and Services Committee meeting, which will take place in March, now will be within the pre-election period, formerly known as PERDA. So officers will be taking a tight rein on that committee meeting. Chairs and leaders did have a meeting at TAG last week, and we've all been given advice to flow out to our groups. So that information will come to you. But officers and myself as chair to protect the council will be taking sort of stringent control, following standard orders is what I mean, very closely. And I will be really adamant that questions are submitted in advance just to protect you guys as members and also the council. So that's just worth noting ahead of the next meeting that will take place on the 6th of March. There's no other comments. I'm going to close the meeting this evening.